My husband requested a divorce, but then reversed his decision shortly afterwards. The author of the post is listed in the description. Background: we've been together for 2 years, married for 1. We're both in our early 20s. The night of the bullshit, we'd had an argument about the distribution of chores that I think triggered it. I thought it wasn't fair that I was doing the majority of the housework, on top of being a full-time student at university and having a job. He seemed to think the chore distribution was fair and that I was overreacting. We came to a solution after all the bullshit I'm about to tell you about occurred, but essentially I was feeling overwhelmed and unheard, and he was feeling stressed and confused as to why I thought this was a problem. Later that night, we're discussing the situation again, and I express how it feels like he's not listening to me and how distant he's been lately. Then he says there's a reason for the distance, and I ask him to tell me why. He says that he thinks we move too fast, he doesn't know who he is, and he wants a divorce. He says he cares about me but doesn't love me, and that he's been feeling this way for a while. Now, I've promised myself since years ago that I would never try to make someone stay with me if they don't want to, so as much as this hurt, I said okay. I cried, he cried. I did ask if he wanted to try couples therapy before divorcing, but he said no. We decided to sort out details in the morning. I grabbed some blankets to sleep on the couch and he went upstairs to bed. In the midst of my sitting on the couch crying and looking up apartments, what felt like hours later, I hear him get up and come to the living room. He sits down next to me and just says, "I fucked up so bad." I freeze when I hear this, because I've barely processed the reality of what just happened and I can already see where he's going next. I ask him to elaborate, and he says he doesn't want a divorce, that he doesn't know why he said that, and he's feeling the most regret he's ever experienced in his life. He says that he realizes he fucked up, and I don't have to take him back. At this point, I've experienced so much emotional whiplash that I've completely numbed out. I'd already cried all the tears I could. Now was just sitting there next to my sobbing husband and saying I'd take him back, even though I'd barely processed the fact that he'd wanted to divorce me. I told him I wanted couples counseling and for him to get individual therapy, and he agreed. I've asked him about individual therapy in the past, but he never wanted to until now. It's days later now. I've gone through all the stages of being mad at him, depressed that my marriage almost ended, insecure about myself, accepting the reality, feeling love for him, feeling numb, cycling through all these emotions over and over again at random. We're searching for a couples counselor, but a lot of them have wait list right now, so in the meantime, I just want to know if anyone has been in a similar situation. Does it get better? Does the trust ever come back? I feel like I can't trust him at all now. When he touches me, I freak out sometimes because that's not the comforting feeling I'm used to when he touches me. It's the feeling like he's suffocating me. I want to be here for him and help him through whatever mental shit he's going through. But this has been affecting my work and my school. I left my dream school for him. I can't just keep prioritizing him above everything else when he clearly doesn't do the same for me. And yet until now, he was doing the same for me. He's always been so sweet, buying me flowers, making dinner, going out of his way to make time for us. And before you scream abuse, please know I've been in abusive relationships before and they felt nothing like this. He's not like those guys. This is the first time he's ever done something like this. I just don't know how we can recover. Any advice about how to get through this would be appreciated. Comments. Commenter. Personally, I think you need to be single and work on yourself. If you got married a year into your relationship, that means you were engaged within just a few months of knowing him. Now you're sobbing over this man and taking him back in the same breath / 2 hours after he said it was over. Also, just because he regrets what he said doesn't mean he didn't mean it. There was definitely truth behind his statement. We got married too fast. There seems to be a lot of codependency in this relationship on both sides. Ope, I think you might be right. It really fucking hurts. Commenter. Yep, it will hurt, but it won't be forever. You need to focus on you. He needs to grow up more. Commenter. In my experience, if he will do that once, he'll do it again and again and again. Commenter. Yeah, dude pulls divorce when confronted about chores. Commenter. Hubby, will you take out the trash? Screw you, divorce me. Hubby, will you pick the kid up from daycare? Screw you, divorce me. Yeah, I can see old boy dropping divorce for everything. You don't drop divorce until the last possible breaking point. I feel trapped in my marriage and I can't tell anyone. 8 months later. 8 months ago, my 23F husband, 25M, asked for a divorce, then changed his mind hours later. We went to couples therapy and individual therapy, though he quit his individual therapy after just a couple sessions, claiming he'd look for a new therapist, and never did. We've worked through a lot of our issues. We've become better partners to each other. But despite all our improvements, my mind keeps going back to that moment. I find myself constantly monitoring his emotions, looking into his eyes to try to see if he's still in there or if they're vacant like they were that day. I completely shut down around his friends because I saw the text conversation he had with his best friend the day of and how they shit-talked me. My husband swears his best friend doesn't hate me, but I don't believe him. I live my life in constant fear that today is going to be the day he changes his mind again and leaves me. I've become obsessive about saving money in my personal account so that if he does leave, I'll be okay. I find myself apologizing for everything, making myself small. I hate this version of myself. I feel like a coward. Last night we had a fight about it because I asked for reassurance and he got upset. He said he's been trying so hard, but that no matter what he does, it feels like it will never be good enough. And honestly, he might be right. He really has been trying so hard and has been such a good partner these past few months, but I can't get what he did out of my head. I've tried to explain so many times in so many ways how much what he did hurt me and how it's going to take time to heal. His response last night, "Good people make mistakes, get over it." So I decided that the pain of bringing it up again and again and hurting him in the process wasn't worth it. I told him I'd stop talking about it and try to forgive him. I feel like I've just made the ultimate betrayal to myself. I stopped individual therapy a bit ago to save money, but the combination of last night plus the fact that I feel compelled to post on Reddit about this probably means I should go back. I fantasize about going back to my dream school, running away, just leaving all of this behind. I hate that I gave up my dream life for a man who maybe doesn't even want me, and that I'm stuck playing the part of the good, quiet wife who shuts up for the sake of protecting his image. I hate what I've become. It's hard to see a way out. Commenter: so what I'm reading here is that though your husband has done so much work and improved so much for his marriage, he cannot consider your side of the marriage. Because a marriage is between two people, two partners, it takes more than just one side. It doesn't sound like he's improved as much as he thinks he has. If he cannot be asked to have a conversation with you about it, that's where the bar is for your marriage, especially after he instigated this crater in the road and has worked to fix it. Oop. To be fair to him, it's probably hard for him to feel like he can't fix what he did. I'm not the only one hurting in this. I keep trying to talk about it with him to try to work on fixing it, but it just seems to make him upset, and he says it doesn't help anything. Update, 1 year later from original post. 1 year ago, I, 24F, made this post asking for advice on how to continue with my relationship after my now ex-husband, 26M, betrayed my trust by telling me he wanted a divorce out of the blue and then changing his mind just a couple hours later. As stated above, he is now my ex. Those of you who said that he would repeat the same behavior again, you were right. On New Year's Day, 2024, he said he wanted a divorce, packed a bag, and left to a motel, then came back hours later. I'll admit, I was a wreck that day. I asked him if this was just going to be like last time, and he said no. I asked him if he felt mentally okay, and he said he felt fine. I got on my knees and begged this man to stay. Not my proudest moment. And he looked at me with empty, vacant eyes and just left. I was in tears for a couple hours, but then I opened this app to try to distract myself and saw he had made a now deleted, please don't go looking for his account, post on the divorce subreddit about how he left me and felt bad, but didn't regret it. Then I went from depressed to furious. I called my landlord and told him that I was getting a divorce and needed his help in changing the locks. My landlord was very understanding and helped me do so. A few hours later, I heard a knock on the door, and when I opened it, my ex-husband was standing there. I didn't even get a chance to tell him to leave because he immediately collapsed into my arms, sobbing. The first coherent words to come out of his mouth were, "You're not going to take me back, are you?" Reddit. I would love to say that I rejected him right then, but I didn't. Even after all of this, I was still hooked into his web of manipulation. So instead, I sat down with him and had a long discussion about how much he hurt me, how in the middle of working to rebuild the trust that had been broken between us, He completely destroyed any progress that had been made and found a way to make that distrust even worse. I don't remember the details of what he said, but he always knew what to say to get me to feel sorry for him. The night ended with me saying I would take him back. He was smiling, saying he'd never felt so hopeful. He wrote me a love poem that night for the first time in years. Meanwhile, I had never felt so broken, and I told him that after he said he felt so hopeful. He shrugged it off and said I'd feel better in the morning. I did not, in fact, feel better in the morning. During the next few days, while I was trying to pick myself back up, study for finals, and continue going to work as if nothing was wrong, he went back and forth every day on whether or not he loved me, whether or not he wanted to be married to me. He said he thought he loved the idea of being a husband more than he loved me. My last straw was when I reached out to one of his childhood friends, who I had interacted with a few times, and though I could trust to be honest with me, and asked him if he had ever noticed any red flags in my ex-husband's behavior in his past relationships or behavior towards women in general. This friend assured me that he had never noticed anything of the sort. I thanked him and asked if he could please not tell ex-husband I asked that since I was afraid of what he might do. When my ex-husband came home from work that day, I could immediately tell he knew. He opened the front door so forcefully. He sat down on the couch next to me, told me he knew, and said in a low and almost growling tone of voice, "But I know you didn't mean any harm by it." I was frozen in fear and couldn't say anything, but then he grabbed my face and turned my head to look at him, and his eyes looked so cold, and he said again, "You didn't mean any harm by it, right?" I nodded and forced myself to answer right. And I knew in that moment this man would kill me if I didn't find a way out of this relationship, if I didn't kill myself first with how bad my mental health was getting after dealing with him insulting and belittling me day after day. I was genuinely starting to spiral into a dark place I hadn't been to in years. The next day while he was at work, I packed a bag, wrote a note telling him I'm leaving and that I want his stuff out of the house when I get back, left the note on the counter with my ring, and spent the night at my mom's. It is an uncontested divorce, filing by mail, and should be finalized in April. I started the paperwork at my mom's house that first night of separation. Since ending my relationship, I have gone to therapy and realized just how abusive and manipulative my ex-husband was. I also understand how broken he is, but being mentally unwell is not an excuse for abusive behavior. What he did to me was abuse, and I'm not afraid to say that anymore. I have reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I have started doing things that I love again, things he never wanted me to do, like wearing red lipstick or eating mint-flavored things and going to concerts. I've realized I never want to be married again. I've discovered my polyamorous identity and have begun to explore this side of myself. I have plans to move out of my hated hometown that he had dragged me back to. I feel so much more joy, freedom, and self-love than I ever did when I was in a relationship with my ex-husband. I won't be using this account anymore after this, as I have no need to. But I want to thank this community and the other Reddit subs that I've participated in. If I had never made my original post, I don't think I would have realized just how awfully my ex-husband treated me. Thanks to the support of hundreds of voices telling me I deserved better, I realized how true that statement was. I deserve better, and now I have better. I also want this update to be a beacon of hope to anyone who has found themselves in a similarly emotionally, verbally abusive situation. Life is so much better when you leave. There is hope, there is light on the other side of the pain. Comments, commenter. That friend of his a fucking low-down dirty scoundrel. I'm so glad you're out of this situation, and how exhausting is your ex? It's so weak and pathetic, breaking up and getting back together day after day. I wish him the life he deserves. Commenter. I'm gonna maybe say something that might sound wrong, but bear with me. The friend did OP a massive favor. If he hadn't told the ex-husband she called, it may have been a while before OP saw that scary side of the ex. And for all we know, he may later down the line have snapped and hurt her. This way, she saw it and got out physically unharmed. Commenter. Damn. It looks like you've joined the He's Not Abusive to Update He Is Abusive club. I'm glad you're free now. Hope you have a great life. New update. Husband's response. 1 month later. I know I'll probably come off as the villain, but I need to get this out. I destroyed my marriage and I still don't even know why. I'm in my 20s. So is my ex-wife. We had this fast summer romance. It was my first relationship that ever got serious. She wanted to go to college in another country, and I didn't want to lose her, so I said I'd go with her. Maybe that's where I first fucked up. Turns out getting a work visa when you don't know the language is pretty much impossible, and so the only way I could go with her was if we got married. She asked if I would marry her, and I said yes. At the time, I thought we would be getting married someday anyways, so why not shorten the timeline a bit? I really did love her. I want to emphasize this because my actions later on admittedly did not reflect that. We had a small wedding. I've never been one for fancy things, and she said she'd rather spend the money on our future than some elaborate party. She spent months searching for an apartment for us in the country she'd be studying in, but ultimately we had to decide on her going alone first when the school year started, and me staying in our home country while she continued to search for a place for us to stay. This was rough, and honestly I couldn't stop imagining her finding someone new or going out to college parties the way all the movies show and finding someone she wanted more than me. It's always been an insecurity of mine, especially because she's bi, and some things she'd say sometimes made me wonder if she'd like being with a woman more. Long story short, she ended up getting sick, and we decided she should come back home and continue her studies here. She got really depressed after coming back home. She didn't want to go out because she didn't want to run into people we knew. She felt like she'd failed in her goals. I tried to help her get back on her feet, but she was just so in her head, and I just couldn't stand it sometimes. Something had shifted then. She got angry with me a lot. We'd get into fights, and I hated it because I'm not a person who gets angry, ever. She said I didn't do my fair share of chores, got upset whenever I'd spend too much time gaming and not enough attention on her. It was like I had to be this perfect picture of me she had in her head, otherwise I was a monster. One night it got really bad. I had said I was going to do the dishes, and I honestly just forgot I was going to do them after one more round of COD with the boys, but I forgot. And as we were going to bed, she turned and saw the dishes in the sink and started screaming at me. I was already tired and I had work in the morning and honestly couldn't be bothered. She stomped downstairs and did them, and I'm pretty sure she intentionally made as much noise as possible so I couldn't even sleep until she was done. The next day, while I was at work, I decided I was done. It was like some sort of switch just flipped in my brain. I didn't want to go on being treated like this. I'd seen this kind of stuff play out with my own parents, and I didn't want to be miserable like them. So when I got home, I sat her down and told her I wanted a divorce. She seemed surprised, which I thought was strange, because from my end it seemed like we were both unhappy. She took it pretty well, though. We had a long conversation about our feelings and stuff, and decided that I'd take the bed and she'd take the couch, and we'd sort out details in the morning. She asked if I was sure, if I wanted to try therapy first, and I was so sure that this was what I wanted. It was rough. Laying upstairs in our bed, I was still able to hear her sobbing, but I was so sure this was what was best for both of us. Then I don't even know how to describe it. It was like a switch flipped in my head again, and I started imagining what my life would be like without her. The morning coffees and kisses, the way she always remembered my birthday, my family forgets every year, her constant encouragement, seeing her smile. Then my mind flashed to how broken she looked when I told her we were done, and I cannot even begin to describe the stab in the heart I felt when I realized I had just hurt the person I loved most in this world. I knew I couldn't live without her, and I'd do anything to make her smile again. So I went downstairs. It was still late at night. I don't know how much time had passed, and watched her try to wipe away her tears and try to look put together as I sat down next to her. I didn't even know what to say. The first thing I could think of was, I fucked up so bad. She set down her laptop, and I saw it was open to some apartment search site. She asked me what I meant, and I told her I still loved her, that I didn't know why I said everything that I did, and I don't deserve any sort of forgiveness, but could we please try again? And this saint of a woman held me in her arms as I broke down crying and forgave me. She said she wanted couples therapy, which I instantly agreed to. I would have agreed to anything she wanted if it meant staying together. The next day was rough. She was starting her new job. I had terrible timing, I know, and she wouldn't even undress in front of me. She went into the bathroom to change clothes. There was no kiss goodbye before work, no kiss hello after. She wouldn't even look me in the eyes. This went on for a while. It was a full week before she let me have sex with her. And things did slowly start to get better. But she was never fully the same. The fun-loving woman I fell in love with was gone. It's like the light in her eyes had gone out. I tried everything I could. I went to the therapy sessions, I bought her flowers, planned date nights, went out of my way to get her favorite chocolate, listened to the books she wanted about emotional labor, and I even created a chore chart so the housework could even out. And some days she'd be fine, but there were a lot of nights when I'd wake up to hear her crying in bed next to me. If I tried to comfort her, she'd just push me away and say she was fine, so at some point, I stopped trying and just lay there and listened to her trying to stifle her sobs and wonder how many nights she was doing this. Other times, she'd get angry. Any mistake I made, she'd always find a way to tie it back to how I abandoned her. It was like nothing I could ever do would be enough. I'd always be the monster who made her feel unloved. One of the worst gut punches was when I realized she'd changed her phone background from a photo of us to a bunch of photos of her friends. I asked her why she changed it, and she said she just felt like it. My background stayed as a picture of her until the very last day. After months of this back and forth trying to please her, and one too many nights of listening to her crying in bed, I looked through her phone and saw something she'd written about how she felt trapped in our marriage. The next day, I told her I wanted a divorce, that I knew she was unhappy, and I was too, and this is what was best for both of us. I went further this time, packed a bag and went to a hotel, turned off my location. She acted different this time. The first time she was calm, self-assured, said she wasn't going to beg for me. But this time was different. She was hysterical, literally got on her knees begging me to stay. It was really unlike her. I was honestly a little worried for her safety. But I left anyways. Hopped online, told the boys it was over, tried to distract myself with gaming because it's the only thing that keeps me sane. Eventually, I logged off and just lay in the hotel bed listening to music, trying to fall asleep. And a song came on that meant something to our relationship, and it was like something broke in me. I couldn't stop crying. I ran to the car and drove back home sobbing and speeding. I'm not sure how I didn't crash. When I got there, I tried to unlock the door, and the key wouldn't fit. She'd changed the locks already. I had to knock on the door of my own home, and the waiting seemed to last forever. I know it sounds pathetic, but as soon as she opened the door, I just collapsed into her. I was crying so much I nearly hyperventilated. She was standing really still. She didn't say anything, and her arms were flat by her side, and I could tell she wasn't going to take me back his time. After I pulled myself together, I saw a bunch of trash bags by the table and knew it was probably my things. I asked her if she'd take me back. She hesitated for a while before saying she'd have to think about it. We had a long talk, a good talk about our whole relationship and everything that had happened. Somehow I managed to convince her that we could give another try. I had gone from feeling so empty that morning to feeling so hopeful by the nighttime. I felt like this time really would be different. I started writing again. She even let me have sex with her that night rather than waiting a week like last time. She said she felt broken and was saying some scary shit about wanting to kill herself, but she's always been a bit melodramatic, so I knew she'd come around. I fell asleep dreaming of a better life for us, but the next few days were hell. I woke up realizing that after I'd fallen asleep, she'd put her clothes back on and slept on the floor. She would barely eat. Everything she did seemed robotic. And every night I'd have to pull her away from the knives and pills because she kept saying things about how she didn't want to live. One night it got really bad. She was crying in bed as usual, and when I asked her what was wrong, she started begging me to kill her, saying I was a coward for killing her soul and leaving her body here to suffer. I was really scared for both of us. I managed to talk her down somehow, and the next morning I came home to a note on the counter saying she was staying at her mother's and she wanted me out of here by the week's end. She left her ring on the note, so I knew she was serious, and honestly, I was just glad it wasn't a suicide note. So I took the rest of my things and left. We've interacted a few times since then to get papers sorted, and now the divorce is final. From what I can tell, she seems happy. I guess she's moving soon and maybe has a new guy I can't tell. I try not to look at her things. For the life of me, I can't figure out why I did it. She's telling people I was abusive. Maybe I was. My father seems to think I'm in the right, which makes me feel icky because he's a misogynist prick. I loved her, I really did. And I'm starting to realize just how much she did for me. My apartment's a mess without her. My life's a mess. I keep forgetting shit because she's not here to remind me. I have a toothache but keep forgetting to make an appointment because she was always the one to do that. And I don't even think I have dental insurance anyways. I miss my dog. I miss her. I miss having someone to come home and vent to, and she was always so understanding of me. I took her for granted. And now she's off to some foreign country, probably fucking her ex or something. And I'm stuck here away from my family and friends, working my ass off in a 9/5 with nothing to show for it. Comments. Commenter. So you were shite with chores, don't know if you have dental insurance, and can't make your own appointments. You played with the boys on video games, which would normally be fine, except it sounds like you made her into your mother, so you sound like an immature teen that needs to be told to get off his ass to contribute to the house. Commenter. I have a toothache, but keep forgetting to make an appointment because she was always the one to do that, and I don't even think I have dental insurance anyways. It's a beautiful thing when weaponized incompetence backfires. Commenter. Lol, so you move out and your apartment is a mess and you're incapable of making your own dentist appointments. Sounds like she dodged a bullet. She'll be thriving without having to babysit her partner. Husband. Oop. I want to point out that I did start contributing more after she told me. I just didn't realize how much she was doing. Okay, next story. OOP is 42 and pregnant. Her husband is 65. I'm 42 and unexpectedly pregnant. My head and my heart don't agree about what to do. I have no children. My husband is 65 years old. We've been together for 20 years, married for 12. Yes, we're both aware of the large age gap. It was nothing either of us was looking for. But we met and we clicked, and I'm still so incredibly in love with him. One major thing we discussed early on was children. He has 4 children with his first wife. They're all adults, some with kids of their own now. He told me when we first started dating that he didn't want any more children. It took me a while to decide if I wanted to pursue a serious relationship with a man who had children with somebody else and didn't want any more. I had never felt 100% sure about having kids of my own anyway. I ultimately decided that I was okay with not having kids. I've been happy in my life with him, although I have sometimes felt a hole in my heart regarding not having children. I think I especially started to feel it when my much younger sister had a baby, and then when my husband's kids had their babies. Being around all of these little ones made me wonder what I had maybe missed out on. I'm very early on in my pregnancy right now. It was not planned. I started to worry that I might be pregnant and felt very mixed about it. At times I felt excited and hopeful, and at other times I felt completely dread. I figured my period would eventually come, and when I thought about that, I felt disappointed but somewhat relieved. But my period didn't come. I took a test once my period was a week late, and it immediately showed a positive result without even needing to wait the full time. My heart wants this baby. I think deep down I regret not having a child of my own, and fear the regret will fester as I grow older. I also love my husband so much that I want to have his baby. I've always been quietly and privately jealous that his ex-wife shares 4 children with him. My head knows this is stupid. I'm 42, but my husband is 65 years old. He's a grandfather. His oldest kid is just a year younger than me. He doesn't want to have a baby now. It's not right to have a baby because I made a decision that I regret. I know that. We're both too old to do this now. I know what I really have to do, but I'm sad and angry about it. Really just sad and angry with myself. I think I could have accepted never having children, but allowing myself to get pregnant has really been like a form of self-torture. It would be totally selfish to have this baby, right? No, I'm not asking the internet to decide what I do here. I just want honest opinions. I'm not sharing this information with any of my loved ones at this time, and I may never share it with them. I know they would give me biased feedback anyway. So please tell me how bad would it be if I did this instead of what I know I probably should do. Update. I want to thank everyone who commented on my first post asking if it was selfish for my husband and I to have a baby at our ages. I received some good feedback and perspectives. I appreciate the honesty of some of the comments. This isn't really a rant, but just sort of me pouring my heart out somewhere since I'm choosing to not share this information with anyone in my life quite yet. I'm 42 and he's 65. I'm 7 weeks pregnant, although I haven't been to the doctor to confirm anything yet. I track my cycle very closely, so I feel pretty confident about how far along I am. It wasn't planned or expected at all. We had planned to never have kids because he was already done having kids by the time I let him when he was 45, and he made it very clear. I think having this baby would be a very selfish thing to do, but I can no longer deny that I really want this baby for me. I feel a huge hole in my life not being a mother to my own child. A bigger hole than I could ever let myself admit. I didn't feel this longing back when I met my husband or years later when we married. I never felt like being a mom was a huge dream of mine or a requirement for my life. When I made my original post, I think I was looking for reasons to go through with an abortion. Not consciously, I just felt that's what I should do and wanted more reason to do the right thing. So if complete strangers agreed that yes, it would be incredibly selfish to have a baby, then I'd be able to tell myself that my fantasies of this baby and ever becoming a mom were best left as fantasies, and it would help wake me up to reality. 2 days after I posted here, my younger sister sent me a picture of a positive pregnancy test. She's pregnant with her second baby. What are the chances that my sister would be pregnant right now? Of course, I was happy for her, but I felt so sad for myself. When I told my husband, he just said, "That's nice," with seemingly no comprehension of how much my sister's news stung me. Then at work the next day, my coworker was talking about needing to take a pregnancy test because she thought she might be pregnant, which triggered a whole group conversation about people's pregnancy experiences. Needless to say, I was feeling pretty sad and sorry for myself when I went home that day. My husband asked what was wrong. I told him nothing, I was fine. He said he knew something was wrong. I had sad eyes. I told him I'm dealing with things he cannot understand, but that it's my problem to deal with and unknown what the right things to do is. And I'm just going to be sad for a little while. It's like he still didn't know exactly what I was referring to, and then he realized and asked, "Is this about the baby?" Of course it is. It's been the only thing I've been thinking about since I saw the positive pregnancy test. I feel tortured over this. To him, it was already a foregone conclusion that I wasn't continuing the pregnancy. So again, he said, "I'm 65 years old, we've talked about this. I'll be over 70 years old by the time the kid is in kindergarten. It's not fair to do that to a kid." I told him I know and I understand. I realize it'd be selfish to him and to a child. I told him to leave me alone and let me cry over it for a while. Then later he asked me if I was going to leave him over this and that he knows I could find a younger man who would be willing to have a child since there's still time for me. I told him now because I'm not considering leaving him at all. I love him with all my heart and I don't want to be with anybody else, even if it might mean I could have a baby. I don't even know if I could easily get pregnant again and my chances will only continue to drop. I don't even want a baby just for the sake of having a baby and experiencing motherhood. I want to carry my husband's baby. I want to be the mother of his children. I asked him if he'd leave me if I insisted on having the baby. He said no. He said he thinks I'd be a fantastic mother and he'd love to see me have his baby, and he's thought about it over the years, but he doesn't think he can be the type of dad a kid needs at this point. He doesn't want to die before they've even graduated high school or leave me to handle everything on my own. Also, it'll change everything about our lives and our plans. Right now, we can basically go do whatever we want when we want, and all of that will end. But he also said he can't stand to see me so sad and questions what will happen if I can't ever get over this. So now he's not saying absolutely no. He told me to go to the doctor to even see if this is a healthy, viable pregnancy so far, and then we'll talk. Of course, the longer I remain pregnant, the more attached I get to this idea, and the harder it'll be for me to go through with anything. I feel a mixture of pure happiness, like overwhelming all over my body happiness, but also dread. I was able to jump on an appointment with my OBGYN this coming Tuesday, due to a cancellation that was happening right when I was calling to make an appointment. I'm trying to brace myself for any news I might receive. I'm officially pregnant, and I'm sad. I've posted a few times about my pregnancy. I'm 42 and pregnant for the first time. My husband is 65, father of 4 adult kids, and doesn't want more. I went to the doctor yesterday to confirm the pregnancy. I'm 8 weeks, 1 day pregnant, which is exactly in line with my calculations. Everything seems normal as far as the pregnancy goes so far. They did a transvaginal ultrasound and I heard the heartbeat. My doctor says everything looks and sounds just as it should at this stage, and she sees no reason to not proceed with the pregnancy if it's what I choose to do. Her goal is to help me have the healthiest, safest pregnancy possible, and while there are increased risks associated with my age, it's really nothing out of the ordinary these days. She went over the genetic tests available and what she would recommend based on my age and concerns. She could also refer me to a genetic counselor based on my age alone, even without having any red flags at this time. I got out of there and went to my car and just cried. I had a pity party for myself, let me be honest. When I got home, my husband asked me how it went. I told him it was fine, everything normal. I'm 8 weeks pregnant, just like I knew I was. I also told him I was having an abortion. I told him I know that's what I need to do. It's the right thing to do. I'm just going to cry about it and be sad for a little while, but I'll be fine. It would be selfish to him and the future person I'd give birth to. I missed my chance. Maybe if this had happened 10 years ago, or if I had realized back then that I had this longing for a baby, we could have talked about it and made a decision less influenced by our ages. Just because I'm pregnant now doesn't mean this is fate or any sort of special sign from the universe that I'm supposed to have this baby. Plus, what if something goes wrong? Or what if I just really end up regretting it and making a decision so totally based on emotions that I can't take back? I like my life. I've survived this long without having children. I can keep living this way and being happy with a more certain future and my freedom. I went to the bedroom to just lay there and cry. He came in and said, "You don't really feel that way, do you?" I told him to not question how I feel because that's only going to make it worse. He said he's fine with me making a decision and he's not telling me to not terminate, but he doesn't believe I'm actually making a decision based on what I want to do at all. If I'm going to spend the rest of my life acting like a martyr over it, he'd rather I just have the baby. It's not about me being a martyr. I know from a rational place that I shouldn't have the baby. I wish I could let my emotions win, but I just can't seem to let my emotions have any say. I really wish I could be selfish this once, that I could just let myself and deal with the consequences later. Happy update. I've posted about my pregnancy a few times very recently. I'm 42 and my husband is 65. We have no kids together. He has 4 adult children from his first marriage. My last update a few days ago was that I had been to the doctor to confirm my pregnancy and that I was 8 weeks along. As of a few days ago, I was planning to terminate because I felt it was the right, least selfish thing to do. I really wanted to have the baby, but I felt like wanting it was just not a good reason to justify bringing another human into the world. It probably still isn't a good enough reason, but my husband has convinced me to be selfish and to do this simply because I want to. I'm deliriously happy. I'm only about 8.5 weeks pregnant, and I know that due to my age, I'm at increased risk of miscarriage, but I just had to go buy a bunch of baby things today to make it real and perhaps to say, there's no turning back now. It felt wonderful. My husband even reacted enthusiastically as I showed him everything I bought. He was happy that I was happy, and he said this is much better than how I've been acting the past few days. My husband told me he knew that an abortion was not what I wanted. I admitted that no, it wasn't what I wanted at all, but I just couldn't get over the guilt of doing something this serious and this big, simply because I wanted it. He asked me why I'm always holding myself to this strict moral code, and for whom. He said sometimes you just have to be selfish and it's okay. Screw anyone who is going to judge me for having a baby. I'm 42, not 15. He says this will be a totally different experience for him. His first child was born over 40 years ago. He worked a lot of the time and was away from home. Now he's retired. I work part-time, and if I want to, I don't have to work at all. He says we can afford it, maybe even get a nanny to help. I don't know how I feel about that. He resents that anyone would think he couldn't keep up with a toddler. He's almost turned it into a challenge for himself. He told me he wants to have a baby together. He wants me to have his baby, and it makes him feel good and wanted that I want to have his baby too. He even said he has been selfish, which I don't agree with, and that I was right when I said he can't possibly know how I feel regarding this child-sized hole and missing out on motherhood. Ultimately, he told me he won't tell me what to do, but he thinks we should proceed with the pregnancy and see what happens. He said the only factor I needed to consider was whether I wanted it or not. He told me he'd get over his whole not wanting more kids thing. Don't worry about him. On the other hand, he doubted I'd ever get over this. If I wanted it, I needed to just jump off the cliff and do it and enjoy it. So I decided to jump off the cliff, and I feel overwhelmed with joy. I didn't want to terminate at all. I already love being pregnant. I love every bit of it, even the morning sickness, which doesn't ever come in the morning, BTW, and the achy breasts. I love every bit of it. I want to experience it all. I do plan to wait until at least 12 weeks to tell loved ones. I'm nervous about some of their reactions, but at this point, I don't think any criticism could really touch me. I almost feel like I'm floating. I'm so happy. I'm not even going to consider any other option. There is no if, just yes. I'm due on October 15th. Anyone out there due around that time? NIPT results and telling my husband's adult kids. Some of you may remember that I posted about 1.5 months ago because I was conflicted about whether I should continue my pregnancy or not. I'm 42, and while I wasn't too overly concerned about my age, my husband is 65 and had made it clear from the start of our relationship that he was done having kids. Ultimately, I decided to continue the pregnancy barring any devastating results found during prenatal testing. First hurdle done. Everything came back low risk on the NIPT. I had made myself sick waiting for the results. I'm just ecstatic now. And the test says we're having a girl. I already have a name picked out and everything. It's so hard to pace myself. I want to start planning the nursery next, but my husband keeps telling me to slow down. I'm in my second trimester now, so chances of something happening are much lower and get lower with each passing day. I had some morning sickness, but that's past. My main symptom now is some bloating, no actual bump, and extremely sore breasts. My breasts have already grown 2 full cup sizes. When I have a bra on, it looks like I got a major boob job. It's weird. I feel less pregnant now than I did at 9 weeks. I think we're going to tell his kids soon. They're all adults and 3 of them have kids of their own. They may need some time to adjust to the news, understandably. I know we could wait longer, but I don't see any reason to. I feel like they might take it worse if we wait until 16. 20 weeks. Plus, I hope to be showing by then. Yes, this is my one and only pregnancy I'll ever experience, and I want to experience it all. I also don't know if it's best to just tell them very straightforward or do some sort of cute announcement. I want to do a cute announcement, but I'm not sure if they'd appreciate that. What do you all think? How did you announce to family and friends? His adult kids are going to be the first people we tell. Well, I told my sister already, but I'll be announcing to the rest of my family and friends soon. I'm mostly just nervous about his kids. I get along great with them, but they're so close to my age that it's never been a step-parent-step-child relationship. I hope they'll accept it and be happy for us, but I will also understand if they have other feelings. He has grandkids that will be older than our baby, and I get that it could be awkward for some. Mixed reactions from husband's adult kids. Okay, even though I've already shared that I feel really silly stating this every time, people have told me to keep doing it. I'm 42 and my husband is 65. I'm pregnant with our first baby. He has 4 adult kids from his previous marriage. Last time I posted, I had asked for input about telling his kids about my pregnancy. I decided that all of the comments about not doing a cute announcement were probably the way to go. I was already strongly leaning toward not doing it, but I thank those who gave their opinions. It was always the plan for my husband to be the one who actually told them. It wasn't going to come out of my mouth first. Originally, I thought that maybe we would have them all over for dinner and tell them in person, without anything cutesy involved. I started to get nervous about it. I told my husband maybe he should just call them each or text them. He said he wasn't going to tell them via text. He told me he's never shared any sort of serious news with them via text. Just doesn't feel right to him. He said he understands and appreciates that I'm sensitive to his kids' feelings, but they're adults who need to accept that their opinions don't matter in our decision on this topic, and that if he's agreeing to having this baby, I'm not allowed to start hiding his happy I am for his kids' sake. I told him ultimately he could decide since they're his kids, so he decided to tell them in person. He said he felt they could all handle it, and he felt better telling them in person. I think he was very sensitive to their possible feelings when he actually announced it, but also let them know our decision has been made, it's not open for discussion. It was all very uncomfortable for me. They were very surprised. Reactions were a bit mixed, but I expected that. One son and one daughter seemed to be fine with it, not expecting the news at all, but I'd almost say they're happy for us. Those are the 2 kids I'd say he's closest to. He's close to all of his kids, but I think he has closer, more special bonds to those 2. They both congratulated me, hugged me, seemed to be genuinely smiling when talking to us about it. His other son was like, "Are you sure this is a good idea?" He essentially expressed that he thinks it's a crazy thing for his dad to do. He specifically said he can understand me wanting to have a baby, but not his dad. Since then, he's talked to my husband and told him he thinks it's weird, but he understands it's our life and our choice, and he's not mad at his dad about it. It was only his oldest daughter who reacted badly. I shouldn't say badly because she's entitled to feel how she feels, and those feelings are valid. She didn't say anything, and after about a minute she got up and went into another room and closed the door. My husband said to just let her go, and then after about 5 minutes he went and talked to her. When she came back to where everybody was, it was obvious she had been crying. She stayed quiet most of the evening after that. His oldest daughter is the one who is only a year younger than me. She's also very close to her mom and very loyal to her mom. It took her the longest to warm up to me, and I'd say I'm the least close with her out of all his kids. I expected her to be upset. Honestly, I understand. I'd probably react the same way if I were in her shoes. It still made me cry after everyone left. Maybe I should have talked to her myself, but I figure I'm not the person she'd want to talk to. I just hate knowing something I've done has upset somebody like that. She doesn't think it's fair for me to force him to have a baby now because I want one, that I missed my chance and just have to deal with it. I don't know everything she told him because he said it'll just upset me unnecessarily. His kids obviously told his ex-wife right away. I noticed she had been texting him a lot. I don't look through his phone. We just don't guard our phones, and he frequently asks me to check texts and respond for him when he's driving or busy doing something else. I admit I was curious about what she was saying, so I read her texts. She thinks he's stupid and is shocked he didn't already have a vasectomy. She assumed he did, and that was the only reason I didn't get pregnant 20 years ago when we met, especially considering he apparently didn't even want them to have their 4th baby. But she also said their oldest daughter will be fine once she has some time to process it. Apparently, she's always reacted this way to the news of a new sibling. Okay, so this turned into more of a diary entry than anything. I'm just feeling a little sad. I'm planning to announce it to a few close friends this weekend, so I hope that'll make me feel better. How do you like these stories? Write your opinion in the comments. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Love you.